Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. Roger Abel, your host, here with Elias Randall. Elias, what's happening?
Another day.
It's finally getting nice outside. Bunch of
it's
storms
getting
rolling
nice.
through, but it's starting to get good. I got a question the other day from a friend. Actually, they don't invest their money with me, but from a friend. And they're like, I've been putting away X amount of dollars forever, it seems like, and it just isn't growing. I know you've got that too, right? They just getting started. And the reason I started thinking about this question, and I did a little research on it, but there was an MSN article talking about exactly the same thing. The first $10,000 that somebody puts away is really boring. Even if they make a 10% return.
You made $1,000.
Well, maybe. I'm talking about the first 10. Because remember,
it's going to be on the different amounts, but best case scenario.
Yeah, if you did a
1,000.
lump sum of 10, but let's say the person who's doing $500 a month, they've been maxing a Roth, now it's $7,000 this year, but they're still doing $500 a month. Well, the first year they did it, if the market did 10%, well, they probably made $300 or $400. So it's not significantly different than what they put in, and they think there's not results and it's not growing. Yeah, it's not growing as fast as you want. You don't have enough money, but the longer you go, then you get the reward of you get $1 million in these accounts and the market goes up 10%. What happens? You made $100,000.
Ooh, that's nice.
I mean, what do you think the number is where it becomes exciting? Like people actually notice it? Because there's like a number that people get to the point where they've accumulated that they realize their money's really growing faster than they're adding. I don't know what the number is. I know personally where I think it is, but
That's a good question. I think I don't know where it gets exciting. I've never really thought of it in those terms, but I think kind of the way I think of it is it's probably the hardest. It's hardest to get to 100,000. But then to go from 100 to 200, it becomes significantly easier. And then just if you kind of view it that way, and then I wish I knew the numbers on it, but it takes to go from 100,000 to $1 million takes almost less time than go to 0 to 100,000. Because you have the growth plus the contributions. And that's maybe not right that it takes less time, but it gets easier.
No, it is. Think about Rule of 72. Rule of 72 just says take your interest rate that you're earning divided by 72. That's how many years to double. So a person who has 100,000 to get to $1 million takes one double to 200 to 400 to 800. It's like 3.25 years. Well, if you put $1,000 in, how many doubles does it take just to get to 100? It's a bunch, right?
A lot.
I mean, it's probably a lifetime. If you put $1,000 in and you never add to it, you ain't getting to 100.
No.
But if you put 100,000 in, you're going to get to $1 million. If you've got, let's say, 25 plus years, you've got a chance to get to $1 million.
I agree. I think the number though, well, getting started out is hard, and you're right, it's not exciting. I think once people have $1 million though is really when they start to feel like, because a lot of times, regardless of age and goals, anyone who's done a really good job saving, that's kind of the number where should we become more conservative? You hear a lot, and maybe you should, right? Maybe you can make an argument for that, but sometimes it's a good idea to just keep adding fuel to the fire at that point. But that's interesting to think about. What are the different hurdles that make people, I don't know, what's your, in your mind, what is the number that then someone thinks, okay, I got some money here?
I feel like people, once they have at least 500,000, they actually start to notice the market movements in the money, because it could be 50, 60, 70,000 a year one direction, and they notice that. When they have 200, a big move would be like $30,000. And it's a lot, but they're like, oh yeah, I had 200, I had 170. I only went down 30,000. Because remember, people look at their investment accounts in dollar terms, not percentage terms. In our industry, we turn everything from dollars to percentages. And the reason we do that makes people less emotional about their money. Do you remember the software we used to use called Elias? Were you here when we were using Elias?
Barely. I'm not very familiar with it.
We do this practice of try to find out what someone's true risk tolerance is. Because if you say to somebody, what would you do if your account went down 15%? They'd be like, well, I wouldn't be happy. Nobody would be, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. But we would change it on them and take a person and say, how much money do you have? Okay, great. You have $3 million. If it went down 500,000, how would you feel? And they'd be like, no way. Like, I don't want to lose 500, but that was the same 15%.
It's the same question.
It just feels different. I feel like once people hit 500 is when they become acutely aware of market movements because they can really notice it. And I think part of it, if they're putting in, let's say, $2,000 a month into a 401k plan, okay, well, if you had 200, the market went down 10%, you lost 20,000 on paper, but you added 24, so you never knew it changed. But at 500, the market movements are likely bigger than your contribution, so they start to feel it. And I think that's the one really good thing about a 401k. People are continually adding to it. So when the market goes down, they don't feel the pain as much.
No, they don't. That's probably kind of another, I think, step. And I've had younger people mention that as they're saving, where in 2022, a few different people said, well, my goal this year is to just keep my account, because we had a bear market in 2022. So I want, with my contributions, to like make up for the loss in that year, which is probably a good way to think of it. So I think that's probably another hurdle where, like you just said, there's a time when your contributions can like keep up with the fluctuation, so it's not as noticeable. But then once you get to the point where your account can fluctuate more than your maximum contributions are, and that's around probably 500 for most people, then it's more noticeable. Like if your account's down at the end of the year and you maxed it out, you're probably thinking, oh man, what's going on here?
But you made a really good decision by maxing out when it was down.
Correct.
So,
it's counterintuitive, but
I guess this is just encouragement for those of the people out there who are just getting started or you haven't got to $100,000 yet. Don't think as long as you own good investments in there, which, truth be told, regardless of where you're at, everybody offers the same investment, so performance is likely pretty similar. It's not that it's not growing. You just don't have enough money in there quite yet to get the growth, but at some point it will become exciting, whether it's good exciting or bad exciting. It will become exciting. I don't know if you saw this, Elias, and this blew my mind. There was a published study out the other day. I saw this on CNBC. By 2024, or 2054, I'm sorry, there's expected to be 422,000 Americans over age 100.
Yeah, that is, and that number's most likely going to keep going up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's 20. What is it now? Did it say? I didn't catch it in the article, but
it didn't say. But I think when I read this, there's actually, I take that back. There's 101,000 people today, 100 years old. So we're going to 4 times that in the next, let's say, 30 years. So it means a couple of things, and I don't think people are thinking about this, and it goes back to something we've actually talked about probably for the last 15 years, and that right now we use age 94 from a planning standpoint, right? And I have a lot of customers who are like, I'm never going to make it to 94. I get it, but what if you do? Like, there should be a plan. When I started in 2002, planning software is defaulting to 80, 82. Like, those were the default ages. So just 20 years later, we've stretched it out 10 years. My guess is in 20 years, we'll be using 105 from a planning standpoint. We're going to plan people living to be 105. Now, I think what starts to happen is that individuals need to really think about what their retirement's going to look like. And I think one of the things that individuals and even planners don't do a great job of doing in general, is thinking about the sequence in which people likely spend money in retirement. And likely the first X amount of years, whether that's 5, 10, 15 years, a retiree will spend more money than they will their middle years. I've used this recently. Go ask 25 people that are over age 80 how much money they're spending today versus what they spent 10 years ago. It's likely less.
They're not doing much
Right.
anymore.
It's not that they can't. They've already done it. Some people can't. Some people don't have the mobility to keep traveling to Europe once a year or whatever they used to do. Right? They're slowing down. It's not a bad thing. It's just natural progression of life.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? The financial professionals at Premier Investments and Wealth Management are the guides you've been looking for. Picture this, a financial plan tailored exclusively to you. Our team of experienced professionals will work closely with you to understand your aspirations and develop a personalized roadmap to get you there. Whether you're dreaming of retirement, buying a new home, or sending your kids to college, we've got the tools to give you confidence in your financial life. We'll help you navigate saving and investing, retirement income, and tax strategies. Our job is not just about making money. It's about helping our clients make smart choices. We'll provide you with the tools and knowledge to confidently steer your financial ship toward a brighter future. Are you ready to embark on your financial journey with confidence? Visit www.btwealthshow.com or click the link in the description of this podcast. Your financial future awaits.
But now if we're going to live to be 100, we've been planning on people having a 30 to 35 year time horizon in retirement. Even some people 25. People live to be 100. Now we're planning on maybe 40 years. But I think people need to figure out, hey, how much money do I think I'm going to spend at age 90? The money you're spending at age 90 is likely for some kind of help in your lifestyle of living. I guess is an easy way to, whether it's in-home healthcare, assisted living, nursing home care, like there's going to have to be somebody there to take care of you. If you make it to 105, there's not a whole lot of super spry 105-year-olds. Doesn't mean you can't be, but you're probably going to need care. And then the question is, how do you fund that? How do you think about funding in-home healthcare, assisted living, especially if you live to be 105? What does it do to the Social Security system? What does it do to all these different things where people are just having benefits for longer?
Well, it puts a lot more stress on all those things because the liabilities are lasting longer.
I mean, that's like 2054. Our parents probably fall into the gap of people that could be to 100. And so if we know 10 people today, we're going to know 40 people. It's
30 years, so anyone between 60 and 65. No, 60 to 70. Yeah, 70-year-olds right now. In 30 years will be 100.
So if you know 10 people over 100, you're going to know 40 in the next 30 years.
Do you know anyone over 100 years old? I don't think I do.
No, I've had a grandma make it to 97.
Wow.
I got one grandma's 93 now.
My favorite thing when people turn 100, and I've seen these on the internet or on the news, and they ask them, like, what was the key to your longevity? I love it when someone goes, oh, I drink a Diet Coke once a day. Or it's like I think I saw a lady one time say, I drink one Dr. Pepper every day. That has to be the key.
I think the thing that I've noticed about, so have you watched the deal on the blue zones? You know what blue zones are?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, familiar, but I've never watched anything about it.
For those listening that don't know what the blue zones are, it's these pockets throughout the world where there's a propensity for people to live past 100. I mean, the percentage of people who are centenarians there are significantly higher than anywhere else. And there's actually a guy who went and did a documentary. It's on Netflix. I haven't watched all of it yet. I've watched a few episodes. The one thing I took away from the people who make it to 100 and still have quality of life, I'm not talking like they're 100 sitting in a nursing home. They're 100 like still living life. Two really common things they did. They exercised and they had a good diet. And many of them, it wasn't because they chose a good diet. It's just the food that was available. Like Okinawa is one of them. And they talk in the show about how, in America, the default when we're hungry is this double cheeseburger Big Mac. 1,000 calories, right? But you go eat it, and we're laughing about it.
Is that a shot at me?
No, dude.
Is that your subtle way of?
I'm
just kidding.
I'm
kidding.
Do you like Big Macs? I don't even know.
Dude, I love cheeseburgers.
Oh,
when I'm hungry, I'm not from a blue zone, so when I get hungry, I don't think about
because it's convenient.
Those types of foods. I think about a burger, a pizza.
So
the stuff I like to eat.
Yeah, I'm the same, dude. I'm the same way. Like
bread, pasta.
I'll take down a Burger King double cheeseburger with the best of them. That's my favorite one. But in Okinawa, they showed what they eat for food, and it's like all of the vegetables, and it's like they showed how much they get to eat for the equivalent of that one cheeseburger, and it's like this giant bowl of food. Like they can't eat it, and that's what causes them to have this healthier lifestyle because that's the common food. There's some lettuce or some vegetable there that's super common that's really healthy. McDonald's isn't on every street corner there.
Yeah, and I would imagine their food probably doesn't have all the chemicals, right? Like all the pesticides sprayed on it. And it's not mass produced.
And they're doing a lot of physical labor too. Like, they're active. They're getting exercise all day long. Where, I think there's going to be an issue in America because we don't do a great job of exercising. We don't have the healthiest diet, but now we're going to live to be 100. There's probably going to be a lot of immobility. So those are just things that I think about when I see articles like this. Like, what are all the effects, the side effects of living longer, not only just from your personal finances, but the financial stress on the rest of the system? Because we can look around and talk about long-term care for a second. For most people, it's pretty unaffordable, right? And they get a pretty low benefit. You go buy a traditional long-term care policy, it's not a whole lot of benefit for what you're spending.
It's expensive.
And most people choose to not deal with it, or it's going to be a state problem. There's actually states out there now that mandate it, otherwise they tax you.
That you have to
there's a few
buy
states
some sort of
long-term care policy, otherwise there's an additional tax.
I mean, eventually it could just be
we're probably just going to be a tax.
Probably be part of the health insurance system where it's just everyone pays in, and then there's benefits for seniors to take care of them.
If people live to be over 100, if all of a sudden this percentage of the population and more, and it's not just 100, it's 90. I mean, you don't have to make it to 100 to need help. A lot of people need help at 85. What's it going to do to the system if all of a sudden this massive amount of people we move life expectancy from, let's call it 84, 85 to 92, 93. Unless we figure out a way to make everybody healthier, which
sounds like a 2054 problem.
Kick the can down the road. And I think people see this happening to family members, people they know, and it leads to why Americans are so worried about their current retirement. And I think we're probably going to see changes to the U.S. retirement system. I mean, we've seen changes over time, right? We used to be predominantly a pension. We went away from that. We went to a 401k. Yet to be determined if that's going to be the most optimal outcome for individuals in America. I'm going to say that for some people, it's going to be great. For other people that don't know how to spend and can't control it, could be detrimental. But either way, there was a study last year from the 2024 Retirement Confidence Survey. Basically, nobody's that confident about retirement anymore. 2,500 people are actually surveyed, and here's what they are most concerned about. Increasing cost of living, making it harder to save, and I see that everywhere, and I have a comment on that, and government making significant changes to the retirement system. Whether the changes are good or bad, people are concerned about changes because it's unknown. Elias, when I see that one of Americans' biggest factors in not being confident about retirement is increased cost of living and making it harder to save. You weren't on the radio show last night, but I'm going to tell you why I know this is really true.
Please share.
America is addicted to coffee, and primarily one coffee joint in general, right? We all know what the most popular coffee place is in America.
I can guess. Can we say it or can we not say it?
I don't think so. We're not going to say it. It's got to
Everyone knows.
Everybody knows.
There's a line wrapped around the building, every single one you drop by.
Yeah, but guess what? Year-over-year sales down 3% in America.
And coffee, 3? I thought it was more.
Nation or worldwide down 11%.
Worldwide?
Yeah. But think about that. 3% drop in sales at America's most favorite coffee shop. People are addicted to it, but they're giving it up because it's gotten too expensive. Their average ticket per car was up 4%, but sales were down 3%. I went the other day for an Americano, it's $4.50.
Oh, the average. Yeah, the ticket size
They've raised
is
the
up
prices
because of inflation, but
sales are down 3%.
Right.
Dude, it's
and
not
that's an
inflation.
That's an easy thing to give up, right? So if things are getting tough in your budget, what's an easy change you can make? Just you quit going to get your coffee, make it at home. That's such a simple thing that people can change. So it's probably a sign of things are getting tighter for people.
And I don't believe that having a small indulgence is what's going to make the difference in retirement for you. I don't believe that. Like, your coffee's not going to stop you from retiring. You're going to stop you from retiring. But when people run out of money, the first thing they give up is the coffee. They go to Come and Go or wherever to get coffee now, or home. I want every day, right?
I've seen you carrying around a lot of coffee cups.
I used to go every single day for a long time. Well, I did my financial audit. I went to my Quicken and QuickBooks and figured out how much I spent. And I go, really? I could have some really nice stuff for how much I spent there. So guess what I've got? I got a mug. I went to my wife and we had one of those Nespresso machines, the like fancy 1 cup.
I love those.
No, I hate it.
You don't like those? I love those. I think they're great.
Let me tell you why I don't like it. I drink at least 2 of these before I leave the house. My wife drinks 2, right?
Okay.
So we're constantly pressing the button. When I go out hunting or fishing, I want to take a thermos. Well, it's like 4 of those things. So I went out and I bought a Ninja coffee maker, 14-cupper. My wife was so against it for about 2 days. Now, the Nespresso doesn't get used. We haven't touched it in 4 months.
But you can get the bigger Nespresso cups that make you a bigger cup of coffee.
Dude, I've had an espresso
But you didn't.
for 5
But you didn't
years.
have you didn't have a drip coffee.
Didn't have a drip coffee
at the
pot.
house.
No.
Yeah, you
so
gotta have
like
both.
So when you have an event, you have family over, and there's we have like a
Takes
birthday
you
party.
35 minutes to make coffee.
You're
for
just pressing
every
the button on the coffee all day. So I mean, it's okay, but now we're just back to the original drip coffee. I go to because it's convenient. I get lots of cups. I don't feel like I have to stop. I didn't need to stop going. I chose to stop going every time I would go because here's what happens. My wife wants one. I want one. Now both my kids want a drink. They want a cake pop. Guess how much it is?
$40.
It's $29.
Oh, $29.
So I'm like, dude. And it's like they want to go every day. No, I can't. Because if I go now, I can't tell them they don't get something.
You can.
I can, but then I have that battle, so it's just easier. We're not going today.
Yeah.
But I think goes to a couple different factors of what's happening in the economy. Unemployment came out 4.2%. Unemployment's up. People are drinking less coffee. The largest percentage of delinquencies on credit cards for a long time came out 2 months ago. Credit cards hit all-time highs last fall. People are out of money. And I just saw that this is yesterday, in the index of house prices, like 50 cities, an increase of house prices, all 50 cities were up. Now, one place had lower house prices year over year, all 50. Chicago was up like 9%. San Diego, 8%.
There's some areas of the
it's still going.
Economy that are just, the inflation's really persistent, which employment is up, but wages are still going up. People are making more money.
Wages are going up. Yeah, there's been a lot of things to increase wages. But I just think that, if you're not on track for retirement, you better figure out what it's going to take to get there. and get a financial plan, because one of the things I truly believe that when you're just winging it and doing it yourself, your level of confidence is just significantly lower than everybody else. And I think a lot of people don't want to find out where they're at. They don't want somebody to tell them they're not on track. They don't want someone to tell them what they need to hear.
Well, that's pretty obvious. There's not many people that really do a good job with their savings. So there's even less that do any sort of financial planning or working with someone to help them.
It's almost like when I go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the doctor because I don't want to tell him to tell me all the stuff I'm doing bad and that I need to change in my life, because that's hard. It's like Jonas, before he went to the doctor, he started drinking celery juice so his labs were better. I'm like, so you tricked him?
Yeah, you trick them.
You trick him.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes to this study that TIAA-CREF did. The TIAA Institute and the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center released their 2024 Financial Literacy Retirement and Fluency Study. And basically they said U.S. adults correctly answered 48% of the 28 questions regarding financial literacy. So they only could get about half of them right. So what I thought would be fun to do is just take a couple of these and see if you can get them right, Elias.
Sure, I'll try it.
Here's the two questions that had a propensity or particularly high rates of being answered incorrectly. Okay, more than half of the respondents got this question wrong. A person plans to start saving for retirement by setting aside $2,000 a year. Her employer offers a 401k plan that fully matches a worker's contribution up to $5,000 each year. Under which scenario does this person have the largest amount of retirement savings at year end? Okay. So she's going to put in $2,000, employer matches up to $5,000. A, she contributes $2,000 to the 401k and invests the money in a mutual fund that earns 5% during the year. 2, she contributes $2,000 to an IRA, individual retirement account, and invests the money in a mutual fund that earns 5% return that year. It doesn't matter. C is it doesn't matter. She will have the same amount at year end, either way.
So the only difference in these options in the 401k, she's going to get an additional $2,000 because the employer is going to give her, if I'm understanding that correctly, she can get up to $5,000, and she's putting in $2,000. So the employer is going to put in $2,000, and there's in the IRA, she's putting in $2,000.
You're exactly right.
So the 401k is going to have a higher balance because of the additional money.
Right. It goes to what I talked about earlier in the show. Is the 401k system going to give people a great outcome if they don't even understand why the match is better?
That would be a good thing to understand to make that decision. I mean, there's probably plenty of people that...
Think about it. Every person, majority of people employed today, the primary source of retirement funding for them is a 401k. The fact that 50% of the people either think they're better off doing their own IRA with no match, or they will have the same amount of money at year end, tells me people don't understand how a 401k works. And a matching component of a 401k is not the most complicated part of it. But
what is?
Not that. We've done a poor job as an industry explaining to people how it works. So let me ask you a question, easier to understand. You have to put money into 401k to get a match, or we automatically put pension and you get a check?
Pension's easier to understand.
Well, remember,
for a consumer.
Think about a year ago, not a year ago, but about a month or two ago, we talked about IBM, how they're doing away with the 401k. They're not doing away with the 401k. They're not going to match the 401k, and they're going back to a pension style plan. Why is it? A lot of people are better off the pension.
And I'm guessing they view it as a sticky benefit that they can probably, that employees might stay there longer because of that. And I think probably with this topic, I think a combination, it was all pension, then we've swung to basically all 401k. I'm guessing, especially if bigger companies like IBM start offering that both, that's potentially the best solution for people to have some of both, because then your overspenders, at least they're never going to run out of a paycheck, right? Their pension, their Social Security, and then people that maybe didn't save as much as they should, they at least have some guaranteed income always coming in, and the good savers, they're going to be good no matter what, right? No matter what the benefits are that are offered to them, they're going to take advantage of it. They're going to do what they should do.
The issue is you can crack into a 401k. As soon as you're 59 and a half, you leave your job, you can go spend it all. Can't do it with the pension. It's not an option. And
401k loans, and
I think
the money's more accessible over
people
time,
have to
too.
realize what the goal of that money they're saving is. The reason you're saving money for retirement is to generate income. It's not to have a big pot of money. It's to let that money generate you income. That's it. So if your money is going to generate you $6,000 a month, doesn't matter if it's from a pension or from the cash. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't matter where it comes from. You just need the income.
Right. So a person who's not good at managing their budget and keeping the control in their spending, a lot of times they're just better off taking that pension because they can't blow it up. Question 2. This one, 58% of the respondents got it wrong. Which statement about Social Security is false? The amount someone receives in Social Security benefits depends on his or her earnings during the last 2 years of full employment. B, a worker receives Social Security benefit payments if he or she becomes disabled before retiring. C, Social Security benefit payments will continue as long as an individual is alive, no matter how long he or she lives. Which one is false?
A, B, and C are true. A
Yes.
is not true.
Do you know how many people I work with that think if they retire 2 years earlier, their Social Security is going to be drastically less?
You have a lot of people ask you that.
They think, well, if I don't pay into Social Security for 2 more years, I'm like, dude, you paid in for 40. You're 35.
Oh, yes. I've gotten that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yep. So
yes, actually, recently someone asked me that. If I don't work and pay in, will my benefit be less? But they've been working for the last 30 or 40 years, so it's not going to have any impact.
right. But I think, and here's the deal. The one caveat to that is anytime I feel like they give these questions that says which one is false, I feel like those are always tricky wordsmith questions for people, but I can see how most people think that.
I think the other, probably just some of these results you got to take with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know how many adults are going to take some retirement quiz. It's not like they're getting a grade on it for school or something, so it's not super important, but they're just answering the questions. But if you really did know, more people would have been successful on the question.
I can understand the Social Security question because there's just a lot of intricacies to that. But not understanding that getting a match is better than just doing your own IRA, that's very hard for me to understand. That we haven't done a good enough job educating people that they actually know that. So, Elias, kind of end of the show, this year we've been focused on personal financial advice. One of the things in every podcast is we're challenging blanket financial advice. This week, we're going to talk about working with a financial advisor. We're often posed the question, what can a financial do for my retirement savings that I can't do on my own?
Great question. Very valid question.
So the question is, how does an advisor add value?
Yeah.
Right? And I'll tell you my first reaction to this is you don't have to have an advisor to get a result. Right? You can just buy anything and get a result. If you want to take a look at your situation and figure out what steps it takes to get an optimal outcome in retirement, that's what a financial advisor does. Because anybody can go buy something and get a result. It's whether that result actually helps you.
Yeah, and I think with some of the value, it's almost kind of like art and science, right? Where it's like there's a science of defining what's optimal, but then probably the art of what we do is understanding the clients and their relationship with money, because everyone's the path they need to go, the optimal path may not be the path they're comfortable walking, right? I can show you here's optimal based on analysis, but people have their risk capacity, right, which is something we define. There's a portfolio that's going to provide the type of ride that you can stomach, right, and set you up for success. But, so I think when we talk about our value, it's not just, the finance stuff, but also understanding the client. And I think one thing we've added, and I think is super valuable, is all of the technology and the tools that we utilize. I mean, there's plenty of do-it-yourself investors, but what do-it-yourself investor is going to spend, what our company spends to have the financial planning technology and all the resources that we provide to figure that stuff out? Probably no one. There's not many consumers that are going to spend the money or the time engaging with programs like that.
And it's not just the time or the money. It's actually understanding how the software works. Because if you put one wrong number in and don't understand what you're doing, it gives you a false sense of reality. Right?
Yeah,
We have options as to what assets to use for retirement. Someone could put in there, oh yeah, my house is worth $500,000, and not exclude it from the retirement scenario. The computer thinks you have an extra $500,000.
Right.
You don't. Your house isn't an investment unless you sell it to retire on.
Right. Which typically, and I think you would agree, when you're looking at someone's financial plan, you already have a general idea of whether it could be successful or not. Right. So if you're looking at results and the results are not in line with what you're already thinking, it probably leads you, okay, there's some data entry item here that's incorrect.
It happened the other day.
Right.
I had a gal I was working with, and the data was in there, and we have someone input the data and then we review it. Well, I knew she had about $1 million. She wasn't spending that much. She had a good Social Security check, and her probability was like really low. I'm like, okay, something's not right. Like, this should be a home run for this person. Well, sure enough, she had like $500,000 in CDs that in the bank accounts that had been excluded from the plan. We weren't using it to fund retirement goals. Well, as soon as I turned it on, it was, 99%. But all someone would have to do is do that, and they would think they couldn't retire because they don't actually understand how the keystrokes work. So I've kind of changed our phrase that we've coined, Elias. We've always said people use advisors because they're delegating their time, their desire, their knowledge. But now we've added technology because it has become such a big part of how we help people plan. So that's the first section. We help people: time, desire, knowledge, technology. The second side is the emotional part of it. Because when markets go down, we become more like counselors than advisors. How are we helping people cope with, hey, the market's down 20%. What are the strategies you could utilize to try to recover? Did you employ a portfolio recovery strategy? Or now we're talking about portfolio protection strategies. What are you doing to do those things? If your advisor didn't talk about portfolio recovery, why? We use that strategy with people. Bad things are going to happen. Life in general is like 20% what happens to you, but 80% how you react to it. And
it's a profound quote.
I used it with Megan the other day.
That's a profound
But
quote.
it's true, right? I mean,
it is true.
Everybody's going to get good things and bad things. It's how you react to them and how you deal with it. It kind of goes back to what I've always told people. It's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. It's always somewhere in the middle. But we help people work through those emotions and those questions. And part of the way we do it is by quantifying the risk capacity. Quite frankly, it would be very hard to give somebody a level of conviction to stay in the stock market when it's down 20% if they don't really have a reason or know the reason that they're in the stock market.
Yeah, because it can get it can be very volatile, right? And that makes people emotional.
When you can show somebody, well, if you have a 70% stock portfolio, your probability of an optimal outcome in retirement is 80%. And if you have a portfolio that's 30% stocks, it goes to 30%. What's it make them do? I want 70%.
Yeah, I want to invest
or
for the
80.
optimal outcome.
You got it. And that's what it does for people. If anybody out there's listening or watching the show and you're looking to get help figuring out what your risk capacity is, you can go to btwellshow.com or click the link in the description. We'd be happy to help you get started. If you're not already and you want more content like this, please feel free to follow us on social, X, Facebook, YouTube. We're on all those platforms. Elias, I want to thank you for the show today. I want to thank everybody for listening. And once again, if you have any questions for the show, please feel free to reach out.